The giant ship appeared on a Tuesday morning. 1 minute, the skies above Earth were normal. The next, a vessel larger than any human-made structure hung over the planet. It stretched 20 miles from end to end, shaped like a perfect diamond, with edges that shimmered between blue and gold. Every TV, radio, and phone on Earth broadcast the same message. We come from the stars. We wish to speak with your leaders. In her small apartment in Seoul, Dr. Hana Kim watched the news with wide eyes. As one of Earth's top linguists, she had spent her life studying how people talk to each other. Now real aliens wanted to talk to humans. Mom, look. 8-year-old Gia pointed at the TV. Her dark eyes were bright with excitement. Real aliens! Hana pulled her daughter close. Yes, sweetheart. Everything is going to change now. Her phone rang. It was the Science Ministry. Dr. Kim, we need you in New York. The world leaders are meeting the alien representatives tomorrow. We need someone who understands language. 3 hours later, Hana and Gia were on a government plane headed for New York. Gia bounced in her seat, too excited to sleep. Will I get to see the aliens too? She asked. Hana smiled. I don't know, but I couldn't leave you behind for this. Gia nodded. I want to hear how they talk. The United Nations building was surrounded by military vehicles. Soldiers stood at every entrance. Inside, leaders from every country sat in tense silence. Hana and Gia were seated in a special section with other scientists. A tall man approached them. Dr. Kim, I'm Dr. Park from the Korean Science Ministry. The child cannot stay for the meeting. Hana frowned. My daughter goes where I go. She'll be quiet. Dr. Park looked unhappy but nodded. Very well, but keep her close. A loud hum filled the room. Everyone looked up as part of the ceiling seemed to melt away. A beam of light appeared and 5 figures floated down. 4 of them were tall, with skin that looked like polished silver. They wore simple black clothes with strange symbols. But the 5th figure made everyone gasp. He stood 8 feet tall, with broad shoulders and a face that seemed carved from metal. A crown of glowing crystals sat on his head. His eyes were solid gold, with no pupils or whites. He wore robes of a color that seemed to change as he moved. That's their king, Gia whispered. The alien king stepped forward and opened his arms. I am Taejo, ruler of the Galactic Confederation, master of 10,000 worlds, keeper of the eternal flame. His words came out in perfect English, though. His mouth moved strangely with the sounds. The UN Secretary General stood. Welcome to Earth, King Taejo. We are honored by your visit. King Taejo smiled, but something about it seemed wrong to Hana. It was the smile of someone looking at a bug. Your world has reached a point where we can no longer ignore it, said the king. You send radio signals. You have visited your moon. You are like children taking your first steps. He turned to one of his silver-skinned helpers and said something in a strange language. The sounds were like music, rising and falling in ways that human voices couldn't make. Some sounds seemed to happen inside Hana's head rather than reaching her ears. The helper nodded and spoke to the Secretary General. His Majesty wishes to establish formal relations with Earth. He offers knowledge and protection in exchange for certain resources and your loyalty. Many of the world leaders nodded eagerly. Hana felt uneasy. King Taejo spoke again in his musical language, and this time he laughed. The helper translated. His Majesty says he looks forward to guiding Earth toward greater understanding. But Hana was good at reading faces and body language. The king had said something else, something that made his helpers uncomfortable. The meeting continued for hours. King Taejo would speak in English, then switch to his own language to talk to his helpers. Each time, Hana noticed the difference between what he seemed to say and what was translated. Gia sat quietly beside her mother, her eyes never leaving the alien king. While other children might have grown bored, Gia watched and listened with complete focus. During a break, she had to get some water. Mom, Gia said quietly, the king is not nice. Hana looked around quickly. What do you mean? When he speaks in his singing language, he says mean things. I can't understand the words, but I can feel it. Hana stared at her daughter. Children often notice things adults missed. You're very observant, Gia. When they returned to their seats, Dr. Park leaned over. The king's language is called celestial harmonic. Our scientists say it uses sounds humans can't hear, and maybe even some kind of mind speaking. No human can understand it fully. Hana nodded. Has anyone recorded it? I'd like to study it. We're making recordings now, said Dr. Park. The king has agreed to let our best linguists study basic phrases. He says it takes their royal children years to master it. The meeting resumed. King Taejo stood to address the room again. People of Earth, he said in English, I bring you greetings from the stars. For too long your world has been alone. Now you join the great family of worlds under our protection. He switched to celestial harmonic, speaking to his helpers. This time his voice rose and fell more sharply. His gold eyes seemed to glow brighter. The helper translated, His Majesty says he is impressed by Earth's determination and spirit. But Hana saw several world leaders shift uncomfortably, as if they had felt something unpleasant. Next to her, Gia frowned deeply. After the king finished speaking, he pointed directly at where the scientists sat. I wish to meet those who study language, he said. Dr. Park stood quickly. Your Majesty, this is Dr. Hana Kim, one of our finest linguists. Hana stood and bowed, pulling Gia up with her. King Taejo's golden eyes fixed on them. A child at such a meeting? How primitive. Hana kept her face calm. My daughter is very interested in languages, Your Majesty. The king made a sound that might have been a laugh. He spoke in celestial harmonic, the sounds swirling around them like water. Though Hana couldn't understand the words, the tone felt mocking. The helper translated, His Majesty says children are the future and he is pleased to see Earth values education. Gia looked straight up at the towering alien king. She didn't look away from his golden eyes, which surprised both Hana and King Taejo. The king leaned down slightly. He spoke in his language again, directly to Gia. The sounds were simpler this time, but still impossible for human voices to copy. No one translated. Gia tilted her head, listening carefully. Then, to everyone's surprise, she opened her mouth and made a sound. It wasn't a word from the king's language, but it matched one of the tones perfectly. King Taejo stepped back, his golden eyes widening. He said something sharp to his helpers. Then he looked at Hana. Your child has an interesting mind, he said in English. Bring her to the embassy when we establish it. I wish to see her again. As the king moved away, Dr. Park whispered to Hana, What just happened? Hana shook her head, holding Gia's hand tightly. I don't know, but I think my daughter just surprised the ruler of 10,000 worlds. Gia looked up at her mother. I want to learn his singing words, she said simply. I think I can. Hana looked from her daughter to the alien king, who was now speaking with world leaders again. In his towering presence, humans looked small and weak. But something in Gia's voice made Hana wonder if humans had strengths the king couldn't see. Maybe you can, sweetheart, she said. Maybe you can. 1 month after first contact, the aliens built their embassy. They chose a spot in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and made an island appear overnight. The embassy was a tall tower of shining metal that changed colors with the sun. Humans were allowed to visit only by special invitation. Dr. Hana Kim was one of the few given permission to come and go. The world leaders had put her in charge of learning celestial harmonic, the king's language. Every day she took a special plane to the embassy, bringing Gia with her. Remember to be polite, Hana told her daughter as they flew over the blue water. King Taejo seems interested in you, but he can change his mind. Gia nodded. I will be good. I just want to hear more of the singing words. At the embassy, they were met by Daehyun, one of the king's helpers who worked with humans. Unlike the Ate others, Daehyun seemed to actually like Earth people. Dr. Kim, little Gia, welcome, he said with a small bow. His silver skin caught the light. The king is meeting with your world leaders today. You may use the language lab while you wait. The language lab was a large room with strange machines that recorded and played sounds. Hannah spent hours there, each day trying to understand how celestial harmonic worked. It was the hardest language she had ever studied. Some sounds happen inside your head, she explained to Gia, who sat quietly in the corner with her tablet. And the meaning changes based on how the sounds rise and fall. Like singing, Gia said. Hannah smiled. Yes, like singing, but much more complex. While her mother worked, Gia pretended to play games on her tablet, but she was really listening to recordings of the king speaking. She had asked Daehyun for them, and he had given them to her without telling her mother. Gia didn't know why, but the strange sounds made sense to her in a way they didn't for adults. In another part of the embassy, King Taejo sat with Earth's top leaders. Prince Do-hyun, the king's son, stood quietly behind his father's chair. Unlike the king, Do-hyun had eyes that were blue instead of gold, showing he was young and still learning. Your factories are too slow, King Taejo said. We need more of the metals we asked for. The President of the United States frowned. Your Majesty, we're working as fast as we can. The things you want are rare on Earth. King Taejo waved his hand. Then dig deeper. Find more. He turned to Prince Do-hyun and spoke in celestial harmonic. The musical sounds filled the room. These humans are like small children playing with dirt. They think they are making castles, but they are just getting dirty. The human translators looked confused. One said, His Majesty says he understands the difficulty but hopes for faster progress. The king smiled, knowing the humans didn't understand what he really said. He continued in celestial harmonic. They call themselves the masters of their world, yet they barely understand how it works. They kill each other over imaginary lines on maps. How did such creatures ever make it into space? The translator hesitated. His Majesty appreciates Earth's unique culture and history. Prince Do-hyun looked uncomfortable. He spoke to his father in their language, his voice softer and less musical. Father, perhaps we should speak in their language if we want true understanding. King Taejo laughed. My son, they are not ready for true understanding. Their minds are too simple. We will take what we need from this world and leave them better than we found them. That is our way. The human leaders shifted in their seats, feeling the mockery even if they couldn't understand the words. Later that day, Dr. Kim was called to a meeting with the king. She brought Gia, having no one to leave her with. The throne room was huge, with walls that seemed to be made of solid light. King Taejo sat on a floating chair. Prince Do-hyun stood beside him. Dr. Kim, said the king in English, what progress have you made with our language? Hannah bowed. Very little, Your Majesty. Celestial harmonic is unlike any human language. The sounds are difficult for us to hear fully, and the mind-speaking part is even harder. King Taejo nodded. As expected, it takes our children 10 years to learn it well, and they are born with the ability to hear all parts of it. He turned to Gia. And you, small one, have you learned anything? Gia looked up at the giant king. I like the music in your words, she said simply. The king seemed amused. He spoke a simple phrase in celestial harmonic, the sounds rising and falling like water. To everyone's surprise, Gia made a sound back. It wasn't perfect, but it was close to what the king had said. King Taejo's golden eyes widened. He said something else, more complex this time. Gia listened carefully, then she tried to copy it. Her version was rough, but the pattern was similar. Prince Do-hyun stepped forward, looking at Gia with interest. Father, she has talent. The king frowned. A coincidence. Human throats cannot form our words correctly. He stood up suddenly. I have an announcement to make to all Earth people tomorrow. Be sure to attend. The next day, people all over the world watched their screens as King Taejo addressed them from his embassy. People of Earth, he said, his voice translated into every human language. For 1 month we have observed your world. We have decided that you have potential, but are not yet ready for full membership in the Galactic Confederation. He paused, looking stern. You have 5 Earth years to prove your worth. If you succeed, you will join us as a protected world. If you fail, we will leave and never return. People everywhere began to worry. What did proving their worth mean? How would they be judged? After the speech, Hana found Daehyun in the language lab. What does the king really want from us? She asked. Daehyun looked around to make sure they were alone. The king believes humans are too primitive to be true partners. He wants your resources but doesn't think you deserve equal treatment. That's not fair, Hana said. We're trying to understand your ways. I know, Daehyun said. But few in the royal court believe humans can master our language or culture. Language is everything to us. It shapes thought itself. Jia, who had been quietly sitting nearby, spoke up. I can learn it. Both adults looked at her. Sweet child, Daehyun said gently. Celestial harmonic took thousands of years to develop. Some sounds can only be heard by our kind. I hear them, Jia said. Not with my ears, but I hear them. Daehyun stared at her with surprise. Hana put her arm around her daughter. What do you mean, Jia? She asked. When the king speaks, some words feel like colors or lights in my head, Jia explained. I thought everyone felt them. Daehyun knelt down to look at Jia closely. That's not possible for humans. But Prince Dohyun mentioned your response to the king yesterday. He made a decision. I will help you in secret. The prince will too, I think. He's different from his father. Why would you help us? Hana asked. Because, Daehyun said quietly, the king is wrong about humans. I've studied your history. You learn and change faster than any species we've met. The king fears that, though he won't admit it. He looked at Jia. And this child, she should not be able to hear the mind words, yet she does. Jia smiled. I want to learn all the singing words. Then I can tell the king we're not stupid. Daehyun nodded. Yes, but we must be careful. The king must not know until you are ready. Hana felt worried, but also hopeful. How do we start? First, Daehyun said, Prince Dohyun wants to meet with you both tomorrow. He's very curious about humans, especially about your daughter. As they left the embassy that day, Hana watched Jia looking up at the changing colors of the tower. Her daughter seemed small against the alien building, but something in the way Daehyun had looked at her made Hana wonder if Jia might be more important than anyone knew. 3 months passed after the king's speech. Things were not going well between Earth and the Galactic Confederation. Every week, King Tayo asked for more metals, more land for new buildings, more control over Earth's leaders. When humans couldn't meet his demands fast enough, he would talk in his singing language to his helpers, and they would try not to look uncomfortable as they translated his words into nice-sounding lies. Dr. Hana Kim worked harder than ever. She spent most days at the embassy, studying celestial harmonic. She could now understand a few simple phrases, but the full language stayed out of reach. Jia kept her promise to Daehyun. She told no one, not even her mother, about her secret lessons. 3 times a week she would slip away while her mother worked and meet Prince Dohyun in a small room deep in the embassy. Your mind is different, Prince Dohyun told her during their latest lesson. You hear the colors in our words. Jia nodded. The colors and the feelings too. The prince made a series of sounds, his voice rising and falling like waves. The sound had a blue feeling to it with edges of something like sadness. You said you miss your home, Jia said. Prince Dohyun's blue eyes widened. Perfect. You understood perfectly. Jia smiled. It's getting easier, but why can I hear it when other humans can't? I don't know, said the prince. My father would be angry if he knew how fast you're learning. He believes only royal blood can truly master our language. Is that why he's mean to humans? Jia asked. Because he thinks we're stupid? Prince Dohyun looked sad. My father rules many worlds. He has forgotten how to see the value in small, new things. He stood up suddenly. We must be careful at tonight's banquet. My father is growing impatient with Earth. That evening, a grand dinner was held at the embassy. All of Earth's important leaders were there. Dr. Kim attended as the head of the PO language team with Gia beside her in a new blue dress. The dining hall was beautiful. The ceiling looked like the night sky with stars that moved and changed color. The tables were made of a clear material that seemed to float in the air. King Taejo sat at the head table, with Prince Dohyun beside him. The king wore robes that shimmered with light, and his golden eyes swept over the humans with cold interest. "Welcome, Earth friends," he said in English. "Tonight we celebrate 3 months of our new relationship." The dinner began. Strange foods that no human had ever seen before were served alongside Earth dishes. The humans tried to use the odd alien eating tools, causing several spills and nervous laughter. King Taejo watched, his face showing nothing. But Gia, sitting with her mother at a side table, noticed how the king leaned over to speak quietly with his helpers. She saw their uncomfortable looks. After the main meal, King Taejo stood to give a speech. He spoke in English first. "People of Earth, you have tried hard to meet our standards. Some progress has been made." Then he switched to celestial harmonic, supposedly to speak to his own people. But Gia knew he was doing it to mock the humans who couldn't understand. The king's voice rose and fell in the musical language. "Look at them, struggling to use even simple eating tools. They call themselves intelligent, but they are like children playing at being grown. 3 months, and they can barely speak 5 words of true speech." The human translators looked nervous. One cleared his throat. "His Majesty expresses appreciation for Earth's efforts to learn about Confederation customs." King Taejo continued in his language, his golden eyes sweeping over the room. "They think we are here to help them. They do not understand that their world is merely a resource to us, and they are barely worth the oxygen they consume. In time they will serve us or be forgotten." The translator hesitated, then said, "The king hopes for greater cooperation in the coming months." Prince Dohyun looked uncomfortable. He glanced at Gia and gave a tiny shake of his head, warning her to stay quiet. But Gia couldn't stay quiet. Not now. She had been learning for months, practicing every night in her room. The king was lying to everyone, and no one but her could understand. She stood up suddenly. Her mother tried to pull her back down, but Gia stepped away. In a clear voice, Gia spoke in perfect celestial harmonic. Her young voice carried the musical sounds perfectly, including the parts that happened inside the mind. Yet these simple creatures show more wisdom than those who judge without understanding. True intelligence sees value in all forms of life, not just those that are similar to itself. The room went completely silent. Every alien froze, staring at the small human girl who had just spoken their impossible language. King Taejo's golden eyes widened in shock. He gripped the edge of the table so hard it cracked. One of the king's helpers dropped a glass which shattered on the floor. No one moved to clean it up. Prince Dohyun was the first to speak. "Father, it seems humans have more talents than we realized." King Taejo rose slowly from his seat. His great height made him tower over everyone. He stared at Gia with an expression that mixed anger and disbelief. "How is this possible?" he asked in English. "No non-royal species has ever mastered celestial harmonic, especially not in mere months." Hana stood beside her daughter, putting a protective arm around her. "What did Gia say, Your Majesty?" Before the king could answer, Prince Dohyun spoke. "She responded to my father's comments with wisdom beyond her years. She spoke our language perfectly." King Taejo stepped down from his table and walked slowly toward Gia. The crowd of humans and aliens moved back, creating a path. When he reached her, he knelt down so his golden eyes were level with hers. "Child," he said in his language, "how do you hear the mind words? This should not be possible for your kind." Gia answered in the same language, "I hear them as colors and feelings. They make patterns in my head that I can understand." The king switched to English. "Dr. Kim, your daughter has done something that has never happened in our recorded history. A non-royal has spoken royal celestial harmonic with perfect understanding." He turned to his helpers. "Take the child to the testing chamber. I want to know how this is possible." Hana stepped forward. "No, I won't let you take my daughter anywhere without me. Prince Dohyun moved quickly to stand beside Jia. Father, allow Dr. Kim to accompany her daughter, and I will oversee the testing personally. King Taizhou looked at his son with narrowed eyes. You knew about this. The prince stood straight. I suspected the child had unusual abilities. I wanted to be sure before bringing it to your attention. After a long moment, the king nodded. Very well. Dr. Kim may come, and you, my son, will explain to me later why you kept this secret. As they left the banquet hall, whispers broke out among the humans. No one fully understood what had happened, but everyone knew it was important. In the hallway, Hana grabbed Jia's hand tightly. Why didn't you tell me you could speak their language? Daehyun and the prince asked me to keep it secret, Jia said. They were afraid the king would be angry. And he is, said Prince Dohyun, walking beside them. But he is also curious. My father values rare things, and your daughter is the rarest thing he has found on earth. Will he hurt her? Hana asked, fear in her voice. No, said the prince, but he will test her thoroughly. And if she truly can master our language as she seems to, everything will change. Jia looked up at the tall prince. Will he stop being mean to humans? Prince Dohyun smiled slightly. Perhaps. You have given him something he did not expect. A reason to reconsider his judgment. They entered a large room filled with strange machines. King Taizhou was already there, his golden eyes fixed on Jia. Now, he said, we will see just how special this human child truly is. The testing room was unlike anything Hana had ever seen. The walls changed colors as they watched. Strange machines with no buttons or screens stood in a circle in the center of the room. Jia sat in a floating chair while aliens in white robes moved around her. They placed a thin silver band on her head. The band glowed with soft blue light. This will not hurt, Prince Dohyun told her. It only reads your thoughts. King Taizhou stood to the side, his golden eyes never leaving Jia. Begin the tests, he ordered. One of the white-robed aliens spoke in celestial harmonic. The sounds were complex, with many rising and falling tones happening at once. Jia listened carefully, then answered in the same language. Her small voice matched the musical patterns perfectly. Impossible, King Taizhou muttered. The tests continued for hours. The aliens asked Jia to translate words, to explain concepts, to describe things she saw only in her mind. Each time she answered in their language. Finally, one of the aliens approached the king. Your Majesty, the results are clear. The child can hear and understand all levels of celestial harmonic, including the mind speech that should be impossible for non-royal species. How? Demanded the king. How is this possible? The alien looked at his data. Her brain is different. It processes sounds in a way we have never seen before. The parts that handle music, color, and emotion are all connected in unusual ways. Prince Dohyun stepped forward. Father, may I suggest something? The king nodded stiffly. Let us test other human children, said the prince. Perhaps this ability is not as rare as we think. King Taizhou frowned, but after a moment he agreed. Very well. Dr. Kim, arrange for 50 human children to be brought here tomorrow. Hana bowed. Yes, Your Majesty. As they left the testing room, Hana held Jia's hand tightly. Are you tired, sweetheart? Jia nodded. A little, but I'm okay. She looked up at her mother. Are you mad that I kept my lessons secret? Hana shook her head. No, I'm proud of you. But I'm also worried. The king does not like to be surprised. Prince Dohyun walked with them to their room in the embassy. Your daughter has changed everything, he told Hana. My father believed humans were simple creatures who could never truly understand our ways. Now he must rethink everything. Is that good or bad? Hana asked. The prince looked thoughtful. It could be either. My father does not like to be wrong, but he respects strength and rare talent. He knelt down to look at Jia. You did well today. Tomorrow will be even more important. The next day, 50 children from around the world were brought to the embassy. They were all between 6 and 10 years old. Some looked excited, others scared. Their parents watched nervously as the alien scientists placed the silver bands on their heads. King Taejo sat on a floating throne watching the tests. Prince Do-hyun stood beside Jia and Hana. "What will happen if other children can learn the language too?" Hana asked the prince. "It would change how the Confederation sees humans," he answered. "My father would have to recognize your species as more advanced than he thought." The test took all day. Some children could hear nothing of the mind speech in celestial harmonic. Others could sense parts of it. 5 children showed strong abilities, though none as strong as Jia's. When the tests were done, the king called for silence. "The results are clear," he said. "About 10% of human children have the ability to hear our language fully. This is unexpected." He turned to his advisors and spoke rapidly in celestial harmonic. They argued back and forth, sometimes, looking at the humans with worried expressions. Jia listened carefully. She tugged on Prince Do-hyun's sleeve and whispered, "They're afraid of us." "Why?" The prince whispered back. "Because if humans can learn our language so quickly, you might learn other things quickly too, like our technology and our secrets." King Taejo finally raised his hand to stop the argument. He switched to English. "I have made a decision." He pointed at Jia. "This child has shown remarkable abilities. Therefore, I propose a challenge." The room went quiet. "In our culture, royal children must pass the language trials to prove they are worthy of leadership," said the king. "These trials test not just language skill but understanding of our culture and ways of thinking." He stood, his tall form towering over everyone. "If the human child can pass these trials, I will recognize Earth as an equal partner in the Confederation, not just a protected world." Gasps filled the room. Prince Do-hyun stepped forward. "Father, the royal language trials are extremely difficult. Many royal children fail them." "Exactly," said the king. "If a human child can pass them, it would prove that humans are more advanced than we thought." He looked at Jia. "What do you say, child? Will you take this challenge?" Before Jia could answer, Hana spoke up. "Your Majesty, my daughter is only 8 years old. These trials sound dangerous." "They are not dangerous to her body," said the king, "but they will test her mind to its limits. She will have to understand not just our language, but how we think." Jia looked up at the towering king. "If I pass, you'll be nice to Earth?" "King." Taejo almost smiled. "If you pass, Earth will be treated as an equal, not a subject." "And if I fail?" Jia asked. The king's golden eyes narrowed. "Then Earth remains a protected world, under our control but not our equal." Hana knelt beside her daughter. "Jia, you don't have to do this. It's too much responsibility for a child." Jia looked at her mother, then at Prince Do-hyun, who watched her with his blue eyes. Finally, she looked at King Taeo. "I'll do it," she said simply. The king nodded. "The trials will begin in 1 week. Prince Do-hyun will explain the rules." As the king left the room, his advisors followed, talking quickly in their language. Jia could hear their worry. The king is making a mistake. The human child cannot possibly pass the trials. What if she does? What does that mean for our place in the galaxy? The king believes she will fail. He is using this challenge to put humans in their place once and for all. Prince Do-hyun waited until they were gone, then turned to Hana and Jia. "My father has never done this before. No non-royal has ever been allowed to take the language trials." "Can Jia really pass them?" Hana asked, worried. The prince looked serious. "It will be very difficult, but your daughter has already done things we thought impossible." He knelt down to look Jia in the eyes. "I will help you prepare. We have 1 week, and much to learn." Jia nodded. "Tell me what I need to do." "First," said the prince, "you need to understand that these trials are not just about speaking our language. They test how you think, how you solve problems, how you see the world. Like a big test in school? Jia asked. The prince smiled slightly. Much harder. But yes, like that. Daehyun rushed into the room looking worried. Is it true? The king has challenged the human child to take the royal language trials. Prince Dohyun nodded. It is true. Daehyun looked at Jia with concern. The advisors are saying the king only did this because he believes she will fail. He wants to prove humans are inferior. Then, we will prove him wrong, said the prince firmly. Hana put her arms around Jia. Can we really do this? Can my daughter really pass these trials? Prince Dohyun looked at Jia thoughtfully. I believe she can. And if she does, it will change everything. For Earth, for the Confederation, and for my father. Jia looked at the three worried faces around her. She felt scared, but also determined. I'll try my best, she said. For Earth. The prince nodded. Tomorrow we begin your training. The royal language trials await, and we have much work to do. For 6 days, Jia trained harder than she ever had in her life. Prince Dohyun and Daehyun taught her everything they could about the royal language trials. There are 3 parts to the trials, Prince Dohyun explained, as they sat in a quiet room, in the embassy. First, you must understand words that even many of our own people cannot. Second, you must explain complex ideas in our language. Third, you must create something new that shows true mastery. Jia practiced for hours each day. Sometimes she got tired and wanted to stop, but she always remembered what was at stake: respect for Earth and all humans. Her mother watched with worry in her eyes. Are you sure you want to continue? She asked every night. Jia always nodded. I can do it, Mom. On the night before the trials, Prince Dohyun gave Jia a small silver pin shaped like a star. This was mine when I took my trials, he said. It brought me luck. Jia pinned it to her dress. Thank you. I'll do my best. The day of the royal language trials arrived. The great hall of the embassy was filled with people from both Earth and the Confederation. Important leaders sat in special seats. Cameras broadcast the event to billions of people on Earth and thousands of worlds across the galaxy. King Taiho sat on his floating throne, wearing his most impressive robes. The crown of crystals on his head shone brightly. His golden eyes watched as Jia entered the hall. She looked small in the huge room, wearing a simple blue dress with the prince's silver star pinned to it. Hana walked beside her, holding her hand, until they reached the center of the hall. Jia Kim of Earth, King Taijo said formally, are you ready to begin the royal language trials? Jia looked up at the towering king and spoke in perfect celestial harmonic. I am ready, Your Majesty. The Tao, King nodded. Then let us begin. The first trial tested Jia's understanding of the most complex forms of celestial harmonic. Words were spoken that contained layers of meaning, sounds that carried emotions, colors, and ideas all at once. The audience watched in silence as Jia answered question after question. Her young voice carried the musical sounds perfectly. Even the king looked surprised at her skill. When the first trial ended, the royal judge announced, the child has passed the first trial with highest honors. Whispers spread through the crowd. No one had expected a human to do so well. The second trial was harder. Jia had to explain ideas that were important in the Confederation's culture, but did not exist on Earth. She had to use celestial harmonic to talk about concepts that humans had never thought about before. At one point, she struggled to explain a complex idea about how time was viewed in the Confederation. She paused, thinking hard. Prince Dohyun watched with worry in his blue eyes. Even Daehyun looked nervous. Then Jia had an idea. Instead of using the usual words, she created a new way to explain the concept, using sounds that painted pictures in the mind. The judges looked at each other in surprise. The child has passed the second trial, announced the royal judge. With innovation beyond expectation. King Taejo's expression was hard to read. His golden eyes narrowed slightly. Now came the third and hardest trial. Jia would have to create something new in celestial harmonic that showed true understanding of both, the language and the culture behind it. For the final trial, said the king, You must compose a royal address on the subject of leadership. This is traditionally done as a poem that captures the essence of what it means to lead. Jia nodded. She had been preparing for this. Prince Dohyun had taught her about the traditional forms of royal poetry. She stood straight and began to speak in celestial harmonic. Her voice filled the hall with music. She spoke of leaders as gardeners who must care for all plants, not just the tallest trees. She spoke of wisdom found in listening to the smallest voices. She spoke of strength that comes from many different kinds of people working together. As she spoke, something amazing happened. The colors in the hall began to change, responding to the emotions in her words. This was something that happened only with the most powerful speakers of celestial harmonic. When she finished, there was complete silence. Then slowly, Prince Dohyun began to applaud. Daehyun joined him, then others, until the whole hall filled with the sound of clapping hands. The royal judge looked at King Taejo, waiting for his response. The king's face showed a mix of emotions, surprise, confusion, and something that might have been respect. He stood from his throne and raised his hand for silence. Jia Kim of Earth has passed all 3 trials, he announced. This has never happened before with a non-royal participant. He looked down at Jia. Child, you have done the impossible. I must ask you, how did you learn our language so quickly? And so well? Jia looked up at the king without fear. I listened, she said simply. Not just with my ears, but with my heart. Your language is beautiful, like music and colors mixed together. King Taejo was silent for a moment. Then he did something no one expected. He stepped down from his platform and knelt before Jia, bringing his golden eyes level with hers. I have ruled for 300 years, he said, his voice softer than anyone had heard before. In that time I have forgotten how to listen with my heart. You have reminded me. He stood and addressed the crowd. People of Earth and the Confederation, today marks a new beginning. The king's voice grew stronger. I must tell you a truth that few know. For centuries, the Confederation has been growing weaker. Our cultures have become fixed, unchanging. We have stopped learning new things. Surprised murmurs spread through the alien part of the audience. We search the galaxy not just to expand, continued the king, but to find new ideas, new ways of thinking. We need the fresh perspectives of younger civilizations. He gestured to Jia. This child has shown me that humans have something special. You learn quickly. You see things differently. You find new paths where we see only old roads. The king straightened to his full height. I hereby recognize Earth as an equal partner in the Galactic Confederation, with all rights and privileges. The 5-year waiting period is cancelled. Cheers erupted from the Earth leaders. Hana rushed forward to hug Jia, tears in her eyes. King. Taejo raised his hand again. More than that, I propose a new program. Prince Dohyun will become permanent ambassador to Earth. He will establish schools where children from both our worlds can learn together. Prince Dohyun stepped forward, smiling. It will be my honor, Father. And Dr. Kim, continued the king, will lead a new research team studying how humans learn languages. This knowledge may help all species in the Confederation. Hana bowed. Thank you, Your Majesty. After the ceremony, as people celebrated around them, Jia stood with Prince Dohyun, Daehyun, and her mother. You've changed everything, said the prince. From now on, when we meet new worlds, we will look to their children first. They see and learn what adults cannot. The king is calling it the Child Protocol, added Daehyun. It will become standard, practice throughout the Confederation. Hana hugged Jia close. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Jia smiled. I just wanted him to stop being mean to us. You did much more than that, said Prince Dohyun. You showed him a truth he had forgotten, that wisdom can come from the most unexpected places. Later that night, as celebrations continued around the world, Jia stood at a window in the embassy, looking up at the stars. King Taejo found her there. May I join you? He asked in celestial harmonic. Jia nodded. The king stood beside her, his golden eyes reflecting the starlight. "There are 10,000 worlds out there," he said, "and now Earth is one of the most important." "Because of me?" asked Gia. "Because of what you reminded me," said the king. "That true strength comes from growing and changing, not from staying the same." He looked down at the small girl beside him. "The Confederation had stopped learning. We thought we knew everything. You proved us wrong." Gia smiled. "Everyone can learn new things, even kings." King Taejo laughed, a sound few had ever heard. "Yes, child, even kings." As they looked at the stars together, neither the king nor the human girl spoke. They didn't need to. In the silence between them was a new understanding, one that would change not just Earth, but the entire galaxy.